So thank you for setting this up. My name is Dennis King. I'm the Executive Director of the Small Business Development Centers of Santa Clara County. And today we're going to talk particularly about what we do, particularly on behalf of the county, in terms of trying to provide a lifeline for the small businesses that make up the economic vitality of our community. So with that, I'd certainly be more than happy to introduce our champion. Actually, as a federal program, we're the largest federal program to help people start and grow their business, but it requires a local funding partner. And thanks to County Supervisor Dave Cortese, that local partner is the County of Santa Clara. So since 2011, we've been providing a wide variety of services to help the small businesses of the county. So I want to thank Dave once again for his efforts in the leadership and allowing us to do the work that we do.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for everything that you do. It's been a great opportunity for us in the County of Santa Clara over the last 8 or 9 years to partner with the Small Business Development Center on supporting businesses here. And ordinarily, we're not dealing with this kind of a situation. We're dealing with a lot of need in terms of small businesses that need support, that need loans and other kinds of support. I know the Small Business Development Center has an ambassador program where people who are starting businesses get mentored and can get referred to other sources of information and help. It's a great thing. It was just about that time, I guess, 2011 or so, when the Small Business Development Center here in Santa Clara County in Silicon Valley no longer had a government partner. And Dennis came to me at the County of Santa Clara and said, is this something that the county could be the local agency, the lead agency on? It required some funding from the county to do that. And we took a look at that, and our economic development people in the county were very excited about the opportunity. My colleagues on the Board of Supervisors at the time were excited about the opportunity, and we launched our relationship. County government, which of course is comprised of a geography or an area that covers most of what we know as Silicon Valley, 15 cities ranging from Mountain View all the way south to Gilroy and north to Milpitas, all the way to the Fremont border, and all the way back in the other direction, to Los Gatos, if you want to look at it that way. So everything between the Santa Cruz Mountains and the Mount Hamilton Range in this valley is somehow, some way part of the jurisdiction of Santa Clara County. And I think it really has made sense for us to be a partner. So we're not confined with a program like this to just one city or two cities or at the mercy of somebody's budget cuts. We've been able to continue to support it all these years. The county has an $8 billion budget and 22,000 employees. So at least up till now, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we survive these tough economic times that are ahead of us, but we've been not only able to support the Small Business Development Center, but very, very happy to do so. And I know I've had conversations with Dennis King, my co-partner in this webinar today, prior to going live with the webinar today about just what's going to happen with federal stimulus money, what's going to happen in terms of support for small businesses, many of which are shut down right now, doing their part, keeping people safe, sending people home, sending people to shelter in place so this virus doesn't take over our community and kill more people than it already has and make more people sick than it already has. So, what's the role of the Small Business Development Center, and what will it be in the future, is a big question. And I'm looking forward to hearing Dennis talk more about that today. And I know that the county wants to be a partner in that. We'll do whatever we can to refer and funnel resources that come our way, whether they're federal or state resources to support small businesses, to the Small Business Development Center, so that folks who have been really carrying their local businesses on their backs, sometimes 6-7 days a week, especially if they're retail businesses, restaurants, and other businesses, have the support they need going forward. So I'm happy to be here today. I hope people will pick up on this and learn more about this resource that probably has been a little bit quiet and behind the scenes, during good economic times. But I know has also served an awful lot of small businesses, quiet as it may be. It's not quiet anymore. We are in the middle of a health crisis that's threatening the viability of businesses large and small, and frankly, threatening humanity at this point. So I'm, again, hoping the Small Business Development Center is front and center and able to play very much a lead role in supporting businesses that employ people and keep our commerce going. So thank you for having me as a partner today in this webinar.
Okay, my turn. We've often been asked about why are we partnering with the county, and I'm reminding not only our mission, but also the mission of the county. And of course, the mission is to provide quality services, but especially to promote a healthy, safe, and prosperous community for the whole community. And so it makes sense that we're now in this health crisis is also an economic crisis. So today what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time to describe what our SBDC program, Small Business Development Center program, is about how that's a bridge to other resources, but also to go a little bit more into the weeds about two of the federal programs that can be of immediate value to the small businesses. And hopefully that should get us going in a good direction in a meaningful way for today's discussion. So with that, if I can jump into a PowerPoint quick overview. The joys of technology. It's a matter of getting it teamed up here. So today I want to particularly focus in on SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center team, in terms of what are we doing to help the small businesses, our clients, to apply specifically for the SBA loans and other resources, because what we're really facing is an economic crisis that in our lifetime we've never had to deal with, not anywhere near what we're dealing with today. So let me walk through that. Okay. So specifically what we're talking about, obviously this is coming from the SBDC family, and our partners are the Small Business Administration of the federal government and the County of Santa Clara. As I mentioned before, it's the largest federal program throughout the country. There's about 1,000 SBDCs throughout the United States. They tend to be only one per county. Basically, we provide information to help people start and grow their businesses. We provide those information mostly through workshops, one-on-one advising. We do other venues too, such as webinars in our magazine. Without the support of the County of Santa Clara, we wouldn't be here. It's really that simple. We often work in partnership with a wide variety of other organizations, whether it's the Business Owner Space of the City of San Jose, SCORE, which is another respected federal agency, and certainly almost all the chambers of commerce and economic development offices throughout the community. The basic purpose of us is to provide access. Access is our buzzword. Access to information and resources to help you sustain and grow your business. We'll speak a little bit more to this later on, but this is our website, and we'd certainly like people to pay attention to it. All of our services are free. They are described in a lot more detail on our website. There's a lot of other things that relate specifically to what we're facing today, and I think I'll come back to that. But there's a lot of valuable information. There's the opportunity on our website not only to apply for SBDC services, but also to apply specifically for one of the main funding programs that the United States has to offer its small businesses. On our front page, it will direct to a number of different resources. One deals with, of course, what we're facing with the COVID or the coronavirus crises that we're facing. I don't know if I can point to it. Yes, there's an application. This red button here is an opportunity for people to sign up. While people are encouraged to go directly to sign up, directly to SBA for the loan or the other resources, working with us allows us to be able to track it as well, because there's going to be questions along the way about what's the status and if there's been any changes. And just minutes before we began this program, I got a 3-page list of the changes that have taken place just in the last 24 hours. So it's something that's going on considerably. Earlier this week, I heard from an SBA official in San Francisco, actually Washington, D.C., who made the comment is that it's like trying to build the plane while you're flying it. And there's so many changes that's taking place. It's hard to stay on top of that. And unfortunately, that causes a lot of confusion as well. But on our website, there's going to be an overview to the funding programs. There'll be webinars to walk people through the process of applying. There's also survival guides for small businesses and a list of other resources that are coming from the state of California. We have not yet put together a list of other funding sources, and we're working on that now. That also seems to be changing on a daily basis as some of our corporate members of the community are stepping up and offering various programs, sometimes on their own and sometimes in partnership with other nonprofits. So we'll be a channel of information on all of those programs. And the best way to keep track is to keep checking the website from time to time. We also have on online a copy of our magazine that can go through the many other services that we provide. I'm going to skip through that and just encourage people to take a look at that. But certainly the highlight of our program is our advisors. We have some 40 advisors, SBDC business advisors, most of whom own their own business. All of them are passionate about serving the community. They are very conversant, not just in English and Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, and other languages as well. They are the heart and soul of what our program is all about. And even though they're running their own businesses, they are completely dedicated to helping serve others to be successful as well. And they do that through offering workshops and one-on-one advising. Of all the programs that we're doing, one of the areas that we've been probably quiet about, but we've been doing pretty close to $25 million a year, mostly of small loans and capital investments. And of course, that's growing. So access to capital is one of our fundamental services. And even though we work with many different banks, different credit unions, we also deal with alternative lenders for people who can't qualify for a traditional bank loan. But whenever we're working with them, the one message that I'd like to convey to our small business people is that we're on their side. We're on your side. We represent you to those funding sources. With the backing of the county and with the federal government, we use that as leverage to be able to get access to resources on behalf of the people that we serve. We have the ability to package their loan requests. Frequently, banks ask for information that small business owners may not have at their fingertips, and they may not necessarily have all the time necessary to be able to answer the request from the banks of what they need in order to justify a loan. We can step in on that. And this is a good example in terms of the federal programs. Today, the two ones that we'd like to talk about would be the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and also the Payroll Protection Program. Both of them are there to address what's going on with the coronavirus. Both of them are trying to be easy and efficient, but I see there's lots of confusion about it, and that's where we can step through or work with our clients to walk through that process for both of those. I'm going to skip over this section, but you'll see on our website, we try to be able to be simple and straightforward in terms of what the information is and to compare one program versus the other in a way that's useful. The one caution is that it is dynamic, it's changing. So, for example, on this one, if I can point to it, it said that one loan was going to be at 0.5%. The notice I just got is that jumped up to 1%. So things are changing all the time, which is all the more reason to be able to get in front of a human being and be able to have a conversation. That's the two major warnings that I'd like to be able to share. One is, as I said, this change is taking place all the time. It's important to stay on top of it. But the other one is, unfortunately, is that in a crisis, at a time of great confusion, there are people that exploit the circumstance. And we received a report earlier this week that there was close to 500 websites that suddenly got created to offer people the ability to get the loans, most of which tended to be charging for their services or at a great risk of cybersecurity, maybe just places to be able to drain confidential information. So the word that we're getting out to people is be cautious, try to deal with people that you know, try to understand that if something sounds too good as something that you might read on the internet, check it out a little bit more. One certainly test on that is if anybody's asking for your credit card, I want you to pay, applying for both of these are free. So they should not be doing that. So please take advantage of service such as ours that not only provide the service for free, but it's very confidential. With that, let me jump into at least two of the programs that's available now only within the last couple of weeks. And that was the CARES Act that was passed by Congress just about a week ago and signed by the President, I believe, on the 27th and is now effective. I'm going to give an overview, but again, I would encourage to answer specific or ask specific questions that we can try to answer right away, but also direct you to our website where you can get a lot more information very directly. The most immediate program is called the Paycheck Protection Program. That actually formally began yesterday. And so there's a lot of things that's being developed. One of the major things that makes this loan program different than the other one is that while it's backed by SBA, the loans are actually being made by banks. Most banks are not yet quite prepared. They're scrambling to get ready. So I guess the other suggestion that I would have for you is don't panic. They're rapidly trying to set up and get up to speed in terms of being able to work this process through. What I would say the first bank that you should probably check with is your own bank because you have a relationship there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. The economic injury disaster loan is probably, it's the bigger of the two. And this past week, they've had a novel element to it, which I think is also very essential. And we'll talk a little bit more about it. And that the new element is that you can get an advance of up to $10,000 on the loan, even before the loan gets approved, and that loan will be forgivable. You know, we get requests all the time for free money, and for years I keep saying, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as free money. Well, guess what? There really is, very briefly, in order to be able to answer this particular crisis. So let me go into the paycheck program in a little bit more depth, and again, we could spend more time on it. Basically, it's going to be by the lenders, backed by SBA. So the bank that you deal with is probably the first place that you should go. The banks that are most likely to move forward with this are the banks that already have a relationship with SBA. They provide 7A loans. If any of you have a 7A loan now, most likely the bank that has given you that is the bank that will be able to participate. One of the things that's also not very public, if you have an existing 7A loan, for a period of time, it's still being worked out, most likely 3 months, but maybe as much as 6 months, the federal government will make those payments for you. So it's definitely worth checking into it. On this particular one, the Paycheck Protection Program, the purpose is to provide incentives to keep their business employees in place, so that in order to, it's the benefit for the community, for the state, and of course, certainly for the employees themselves to stay on the job or at least get covered even if they're not on site. This program is to last for 8 weeks. It's flexible, so it could be retroactive to February 15, or it could go forward all the way to June. But essentially, it's to cover the cost of the employee expenses and related expenses during the cost of those 8 weeks. So another way to describe it, this is basically for nearly all businesses that are considered to be small business. Now, that's a question I often get asked, well, how do you define small business? And it seems like it's the most obvious question and the most difficult to answer. But for this program, the federal government says for businesses that have less than 500 employees. So that definition just got broader over the course of this last week. Again, they're trying to cast this safety net as broadly as possible. The purpose is to be able to cover the raw expenses or the hard expenses of operating and maintaining your employees there. Currently, whatever part of the loan is not forgiven, the interest rate is at 1% for a period of 2 years. You don't need to make a payment on this loan for 6 months. The fact that it's guaranteed 100% by SBA, it means that there's no collateral required, that you don't need to make a personal commitment because it's backed by SBA, which is, by the way, extraordinary. We've never run across a loan like this before. So now the economic injury disaster loan is a bit different, and that's the one that came out the gate first. This is to provide, there's an overlap, but to cover your basic expenses. It doesn't cover profit, but it does cover cost of goods, rent, payroll, accounts payable, the basic expenses that you have as related in the nature of your business. But it's supposed to be able to document that you've got a loss, that you've not been able to meet these costs because of the crises at hand. And that's the rationale for providing this particular loan. This is a loan that's provided by SBA, and you are encouraged to apply directly to SBA in order to do it. I've just got some flash announcements. So one announcement was that since this week, in applying for the loan, in almost every case, people are entitled to an advance on that loan, and that advance is up to $10,000, and that advance is going to be forgiven. So it's an extraordinary circumstance from the federal government to make things happen and happen things quickly. The flash announcement I just got was they had said that if you've applied before March 30th and you don't have a SBA loan officer assigned to you yet, they strongly encourage you to reapply with the new website that is part of this presentation because it's supposed to be a lot more efficient than the website before that. Also, if you have not applied and asked specifically for the advance and you don't have a loan officer assigned to you, they strongly recommend to reapply and specifically ask for that advance. Again, if there's any questions, please get back to us and we can work with you locally on that. There are some basic details. A lot of the credit requirements that they had a week ago don't exist today. So they're encouraging you go direct and be able to talk to the SBA loan officer and go over the specifics with that particular one. When you apply for this loan, you're not going to ask for a dollar amount because you're going to work with the SBA officials to determine what you're entitled to. The basic idea, though, as of a couple of days ago, was that if you were asking for a loan under $25,000, no collateral is required. The notice that we just got is that that's now been raised to about $200,000. Collateral is required for the larger loans, but they describe it in a very interesting way. They said it's required, but if you don't have it, that's not going to stop the loan. So I'm not sure. We're going to have to come up with a new term to describe what that is. But it's a flat rate, so that portion of the loan that is not forgiven will be a flat rate of 3.75% for small businesses or 2.75% for nonprofits, and the loan could be up to 30 years. What I have heard, but not yet documented, is that they're going on the assumption that they're all going to be 30 years, which is very, very unusual considering not all businesses last that long. In any case, it's certainly worth pursuing immediately. I think we've already gone over most of this in terms of the small businesses that qualify. The ones that don't qualify are the ones listed here. If you have a gambling concern, I guess in this case, you lose. If you have a religious organization, I guess in this case, you don't have a prayer. But for the other kinds of businesses that are listed here, these are the ones that don't qualify. What I would say, though, don't give up, except for the illegal activities. Don't give up. Talk to us and see if there's some other way to be able to back your needs. I'm going to skip over the application process because it's spelled out in detail on our website, and we can also send you a lot of information. But the process just changed again dramatically. It had required, up until a few days ago, 4 different documents that kind of slowed down the process in order to document that there was a loss. Today, what they're saying is just apply directly, and the SBA loan officer will walk you through whatever else that they need. So that's, in a nutshell, those are the 2 programs that's immediately available, and we certainly encourage you to go after them right away. And again, please do that directly. But if you've got any questions, because there's certainly a lot of confusion, please note our website, and you can sign up for our services. Again, they're free. And on our website, you're going to see a lot of other information that can help you. We have a small business survival guide. We have certain webinars specifically for restaurants. We have a lot of basic information to help you get through this crisis. This is not our official slogan, but this is what our advisors are saying day after day. We're here for you. So please keep that in mind. Dave, can I go back to you and suggest that we'd be certainly more than happy to entertain what questions that there are, or direct people to where they can get more answers.
Yeah, if that concludes the presentation on the Small Business Development Center programs that are in place now, what we're anticipating, we may be able to go to questions. I know we have a moderator, and I know that we are broadcasting this simultaneously Facebook Live. So if we have Tara or Lourdes or somebody who wants to direct some questions to us, we can try to answer those at this time.
Yeah, so we have, if anyone wants to ask any questions, they can comment on the live stream, and we have a couple for you now. The first question's from Dave Guerrieri, and Dave wants to know, can we include independent contractors when we calculate our payroll?
I'm sorry, when we calculate what?
Our payroll. And I believe this is in relation to the Paycheck Protection Program.
That's a good question. I'll let Dennis answer that.
Independent contractors are usually viewed as sole proprietors, and they do count for both programs as long as they've filed as a Schedule C in their most recent taxes. So if they haven't filed for Schedule C, then they're not viewed as an independent business. But if they have, they certainly can. If there's any maybe off-the-record tip, is that if they haven't done so yet and they haven't filed their taxes yet for last year because the deadline has been extended, I would strongly recommend do the Schedule C and then apply, because those lending organizations will check to see your Schedule C. But yes, independent contractors do count.
And I would just say, Dennis, I'm not sure if the question was also a little bit geared toward whether or not an employer who has employees can also include independent contractors factors in establishing the size of, of their organization and the number of employment that
And the
they
answer
have.
to
And of
that
course,
is yes, because that's considered to be a legitimate business expense.
got it.
So yes.
Okay.
What's the next question, Tara?
Yeah, and the next question is from Brett. So they just started a new business, and it's a health center in the middle of the COVID-19 fight. And they're brand new, and they're just going to start their payroll. And they incorporated during the first of this year, and they'd like to use the Paycheck Protection Program to start their payroll. And they wanted to ask if that were possible, or if they would need to show prior payroll records.
May I try that one? Let's split the question. So startups do count, for example, for the economic injury loan, but they will need to work or have a discussion with their SBA loan officer, because the loan officer will want to know what's the plan, what's the probability of being able to pay the loan back. So it still counts. For most banks, on the other hand, most banks need a track record, and they usually don't give out loans until a business has got that track record, usually a good 2 years, usually. This loan is very different, though, because this is 100% backed by SBA. And the answer will have to depend on whatever bank is going to establish that. So the banks will have their own criteria independent of what the federal government has. And that could go for or against the applicant, depending on the circumstances. And an example of a rule is that for the economic injury loans requires a Social Security. Yet most banks are willing to give loans, especially the larger banks, are willing to give loans if they just have an ITIN number or a tax identification number. So usually banks have a little bit more flexibility, except for the longevity of a business. So that's a question that should be directed specifically to the bank that they're dealing with. If they get turned down on that, there will be other banks most likely that will be stepping up. But start with your own bank first. Okay, and the next question, a couple people asked, can they apply for both loans? So if they apply for the PPP program, can they apply for other SBA loans?
Dennis?
So yes, they can, and we recommend that they can. What they can't do is they can't apply for the same loss. In other words, it's got to be different. Now, the PPP loan is for only 8 weeks. So the economic injury loan program is longer than that. So what would be very helpful if they're seriously considering it is to have a discussion with an advisor. Our advisors are doing what I called unofficially a mix and match, and that is try to identify where the parameters are of each of the loans so that our small businesses could get the maximum benefit of both.
Okay, great. So the next question, it's a bit trickier. What if the shelter-in-place order extends beyond the 8-week payroll protection period? I don't know if you have any insight on that.
Well, obviously we can't predict that, and rules are changing all the time. We do know that the economic injury loan goes for, there is no deadline on that yet. So that one would be certainly one that would be of use, certainly beyond the 8 weeks. But of course, there's so many changes. If this goes on longer than it appears, I'm sure there'll be some adjustments along the way. It's just at this stage, nobody can predict that.
Yeah. And so, Dave, did you have anything to say about that, just coming from the county perspective?
Yeah, well, we, of course, the public health officials in the in this 7-county area that's part of the Bay Area just recently extend shelter in place through May 3rd, which is we understand, we all understand that it's going to have some devastating impact on local businesses and small businesses, particularly. A lot of 60% of the employment in Santa Clara County does not come from the large technology sector. It comes from other businesses. It comes from things that you and I would consider to be small businesses or medium businesses in terms of size. It's small retail, it's restaurants, it's the person who has a business, changing tires for semi trucks, or an industrial business that's doing landscaping or something like that. They are shut down. These are not essential businesses under the orders. Hopefully this information will get far beyond even the pretty good FaceTime audience that we have today, or I'm sorry, Facebook Live audience that we have today. People should spread this around because the numbers are still ticking up in terms of infections, in terms of ICU beds that are being occupied right now. Those have doubled just over the last few days. The numbers in the state, although they're lower than we're seeing in places like New York, given the size of our state, that's good. That's really a tribute to the residents of the Bay Area and Southern California and other urban areas in California are doing a tremendous job of sheltering in place. And it's a tremendous credit to the small businesses who have had the discipline to say, as soon as they heard about these rules, we're going to do social distancing, we're going to shut down, we're not going to convene people, we're going to abide by the law, and we're going to try to protect ourselves and the people we serve. Understand one thing, and this is why Dennis is saying we don't know. When there's an emergency declared, like this coronavirus emergency, something unusual happens in our government that you don't usually see. The Board of Supervisors suddenly, in a sense, loses authority over the emergency. And what happens is by law, by operation of law in the state of California, public health officials who are usually medical doctors, like Dr. Sarah Cody in Santa Clara County, suddenly have broad sweeping authority to immediately and repeatedly make rules, rulings, orders, and establish guidelines, even with penalties like criminal penalties, not just civil penalties, but criminal penalties attached to them. For example, certain violations of these orders right now would be constituted or cited as a misdemeanor. People inquire of me all the time, multiple times a day. Dave, you have a business background. You understand this particular type of construction, or this particular type of landscaping, or this particular type of small business isn't really encountering groups of people. These are businesses where individuals are separated, where there's already social distancing traditionally. People don't work in cohorts. They don't work in groups. So why is this business being cast as one of the businesses that's so-called non-essential and can't operate? Why are these businesses having to send their employees home? And the short answer is the Board of Supervisors doesn't necessarily agree 100% with all of these rules, in the same sense that you question these rules. We question some of these rules. We continue to communicate with our public health officials and let them know where we see that things aren't working on the ground. Where do we see that the rules should probably be modified or amended to allow certain things to go forward, or in some cases to restrict some other things more so than they have been restricted. So I have the ability to express myself. So do the other 4 supervisors. We're happy to express your views. Every single day I get statements, emails, inquiries, good suggestions, questions from business people and other constituents in this community I can assure you those are immediately forwarded to the county counsel's office, the legal department, and the public health department to let them know that we have an issue on our hands that might need to be changed. That's not working. But understand at the same time, during this declared emergency, I don't get to tell her what to do. The supervisors in Alameda County don't get to tell their public health officer what to do. Mayor Breed in San Francisco and the Board of Supervisors, they don't get to tell their public health officer what to do because that's what California law says. When it's an emergency, it's almost like wartime, and we're all trying to abide by the rules. So my advice is, if you're struggling and you don't understand why this seems to be unfairly impacting you or your business, let us know. We'll carry that message forward. But while you're waiting for an answer, please abide by the rules, because I believe that the very thing that has saved us from turning into New York or Italy or some province in China with these astronomical numbers, the very thing that stopped that from happening is the cooperation of our businesses here in the community who have been willing to buy in and say, let's beat this thing and let's get back to business. But let's keep people healthy while we're waiting for things to come back.
Thank you. Well, one, not a question, but a comment. So someone has actually signed up to join SVSBDC, Dennis. So be on the lookout for an email there.
Okay.
And our next question, not sure if either of you may have insight, but our question is, since their normal business bank is not allowing them to apply through them, are there any sort of assurances that small businesses searching for a bank have to ensure that funds will still be available once their application's actually processed?
Can I assume that you're talking about the payroll protection plan? What I would ask is be patient a little bit, not forever, but be patient with your bank. They're trying to figure it out. This only became a law a little bit more than a week ago. So the banks are scrambling to figure out how do they put these plans in place. We've been hearing from some that are very aggressive and have moved ahead. We've also heard from others that they are going to treat their existing customers as a priority. And then the vast bulk of them are still trying to figure it out. So I would suggest to be cautious. If somebody wanted to press a little bit further, they can ask their bank or credit union if they provide 7A loans. If they provide 7A loans or already work with SBA, then they'll probably figure it out and they'll be able to make a positive announcement within the next week, probably. We'll be getting a list of the banks that here in Northern California that are cooperative and have already opened their programs. It's too early. Yesterday was the first day. So we expect that we'll be getting the list sometime early part of next week. We'll post that on our webpage as well, our website as well. And certainly our advisors will be apprised as to which banks are open and for whom. So it's still in progress.
Great. Well, sort of a related question. Do either of you happen to know why banks are allowed to establish their own criteria for applying for these loans above what the federal law prescribes?
Go ahead, Dennis. I'm a former banker, but it's been so long since I was in that industry that I know that in banking, one principle that's always been protected is the human component. There's always a subjective component. There's rules, there's criteria, but there's also some judgment involved in whether or not people have the capacity and the character and so forth to go forward. So those are the old style rules from from my days back in the industry that go back a couple decades. But I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, Dave, I think you're exactly right in that in spite of technology, in spite of the growing numbers of people and the complexity of our society, so much of this is still based on relationships. Now, there are parameters that banks have, like they need, banks are not charities. They want to know that they get their money back. And so that's why the financials are so important. Somebody's track record is usually defined like through their credit reports, gives a good indication of what the future may be. This particular loan, though, is different than any other loan of which we're aware, is that it's 100% backed by SBA. But not all banks deal directly with SBA. So I think it's now a good time is to evaluate the relationships that you have. A good question and good challenge to our business owners is, do you know the name of your bankers? Do you know them? Have you visited them beyond the times that you need them? I mean, this is kind of this is a challenge for everybody. This is not just a challenge for the bankers. To what extent have we invested in developing a relationship with the people that provide us services? That test is now. So there's still opportunities for dealing with people that you don't know, but you are far better off dealing with the people that you have a working relationship with right now. Now, again, some of these things are changing and in terms of some that's going to be more aggressive than others. And as I said, some banks are a lot more flexible. As I said, some banks are willing to give loans or alternative lenders, and some credit unions are able to be more expansive than others. So not all banks are the same. Banks are like people. They're different. They have their own priorities and their own purpose of what they're all about. So,
Dennis, Dennis, let me ask you a follow-up question hopefully it would be helpful to the public that's listening, the small business owners that are listening. At some point, and I know you have to steer clear of steering business to anybody. I know you wouldn't do that. But at some point, would you generate a list once we get a little further down the road with this? As you said, it's new. At least this piece of it is new. But generate a list as to which banks are actively looking for this type of customer and this type of business. Because having been a banker myself at one time, I will tell you, when you have the backing of the federal government, one of the few organizations in the world that has a AAA credit rating, and they're backing up your loan, you want to make as many loans like that as you can, because it's not that you don't trust the borrower, but if worse comes to worse, you've got the best cosigner in the world. The federal government is printing money to back this up. So I'm thinking there's probably going to be some lenders, who start to get a reputation out there, that you become aware of, that are aggressive, that are looking for loan business in this area. And I'm just wondering if you could, when that time comes, if you could start listing those out, not with preference, but just saying these are businesses that have asked us to make sure that they're active with these SBA-backed loans.
Yes, we will have that on our website. We may put it out in our newsletter as well. There's going to be at least 3 sources. So I'm still on the board of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. They started putting a list together as of yesterday. So they will be sharing that with us in the days to come. We're part of the nationwide network of SBDCs, but especially in Northern California. And the conference call that we had with them on Thursday indicated that they're going to be putting a list also. Our best source of lists, though, deals with our clients, what they're telling us on a day-by-day basis, and also with our advisors. So I'm already and I don't want to announce them, although I'm biased to do so, but I'm not going to announce them. There's at least 2 banks that's already moving, and they're not restricting it to just their clients. So we are actively in pursuit of the resources that can help our small businesses. And if we can post it for everybody to use, that's exactly what we intend to do.
Great. Well, one of the other questions, this question's from Ritika, and first she wants to thank you, Dave and Dennis, for putting on this webinar. And her question is, do either or both of the loans have a forgivable clause?
They both do.
Easy.
And it's important, especially on the economic injury disaster loan, you have to apply for it. So if they've applied for the loan before the 30th, the feedback that we got just a few hours ago is unless they've got an SBA loan officer already assigned to them, they should reapply and specifically ask for the advance. And that's up to $10,000, and that is definitely forgivable.
Okay, great. So this one may be a quick answer as well. So the commenter wrote, we are not allowed to apply for the loan at multiple banks. If we submit an application to one bank without confirmation of receipt, are we allowed to submit another application to another bank?
I assume it's going to be for two different things. You don't want to ask for a loan for the same subject for more than one funding source.
The problem that comes up with that, from both a business and a banking standpoint, if you're the banks and you're underwriting, and you've got 10 applications that you're going through, and you're trying to determine whether or not that business or that applicant has the cash flow, the capacity to repay that loan. And one of the reasons you're looking at credit is not just to see if the credit's good, but to see how much is out there. How much are these people indebted? How much are they paying? What's their debt service against the revenue that they're bringing in or they anticipate bringing in? So what happens is when you apply in multiple places, whether or not it's banned, on a statutory basis, even if it's allowed, you run the risk of confusing the underwriter or clouding the mind of the underwriter who's looking at that now and doesn't really know what you're going to end up with in terms of total debt service. So you want to keep that pretty simple. You can apply. If you get denied, you can go somewhere else. That's generally the rule of thumb. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Dennis, but it's okay to go to more than one place, but keep them in sequence so you can always say, oh, that other inquiry on my credit, I killed that application. I decided to come to you instead, or I decided to come here. That's not a live loan application. But if they're both live at the same time, how does that lender know how much debt you're going to end up with? So you don't want to confuse the lender or cloud it, especially when you're competing with other people for the same pot of money.
I would not only completely agree, but think of it also as a relationship. You shouldn't do something behind the back if you're trying to develop a trusting relationship. You should realize that if you're going for a bank loan and ABC Bank, and then the next day to go to XYZ Bank, they're going to know about it. So for your own sake, now more than ever, you need to be honest and straightforward with those with whom you're doing business. And that certainly starts with the people that are going to provide you with funding for your future.
Okay, great. Well, we were able to answer most of the questions. Some people had duplicate questions. So before we close, our webinar is almost over. I thought I'd just leave it open to both of you for any closing remarks you may have.
Well, let me just say that, again, my office is very proud to be involved with this. I have my own business background. Some people aren't aware of that, but I still have business interests just because I established my businesses before I went into public office. And to the extent that I have business interests that others can manage for me now, I've kept those going. So I have a tremendous interest in this subject myself, and I understand very, very clearly, especially in these times, why our viewers and our listeners and a lot more people who couldn't get on this webinar today are going to need this information. I want to simplify something. if you heard all this, or you're watching this, or you're running a replay of this, and you get to the end of it and you just want to know, where can I just call right now to get directed to where I need to go? By all means, anytime you can call my office, and I think Dennis is probably going to make the same offer here in a moment, but you can contact my office, 408-299-5030. Even during COVID-19, we are rotating two staff members in that office, and everyone else is working remotely. Dennis?
Thank you, Dave. Yes, let me echo that. Clearly, this is a crisis. Clearly, this is an emergency that our country, our community has not faced in our lifetime. Rules, regulations, resources are changing daily. There's a lot of confusion. But thanks to Supervisor Cortese and his colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, we are here. We're here for you. So take advantage of us. Let us work together for your success. Yes, you can call our office. I was hesitating a moment, but I would strongly recommend that you get on our website, because you can get a lot of your answers right off the bat. But if you still want that human touch, we're more than happy to do what we can. That's 408 or 248-4800. Again, 248-4800, and we'll look forward to talking to you. Good luck to everybody. Stay healthy for you and your families.
That was very brave, Dennis. And God bless you all. And please keep up the good work out there. Thank you.
Thank you.